Hello all and welcome to video classes by Konnur Institutes. Today we will be discussing on the topic determinants of a firm's supply curve. So in the previous class we have seen what is a shutdown point and what is the normal profit, supernormal profits, and also we have discussed the break-even point, right? So let's understand the further part, which is nothing but the determinants of the firm's supply curve. So what are these meant by determinants of the firm's supply curve? See, when we have a firm starting, or when there is a firm which is running in the market, there will be ups and downs in the firm, right? Maybe the internal factors, maybe the external factors, right? So if these internal factors and the external factors affect the firm, then there will be a shift in the supply curve. So let's understand what those factors maybe. So we have here two factors. One is the technological progress and the second is the input prices. So what is this technological process? For an example, we'll consider a shoe shop, okay, wherein shoes are being manufactured. A shoe industry or a shoe firm wherein shoes are being manufactured. If you go back in the previous days, in the olden, very olden days, then we didn't have a very vast technology. But if you consider now, we have a very vast technology which is being implemented in each and every industries, right? So how these shoes used to be manufactured before and how they are manufactured now, if you compare them, there are so many factors which will be observed here. Let's say, for example, the raw material. We didn't have any technology, so the labor used to cut the leather or the fabric according to the particular shoe size. Okay? So how much accurate that labor can cut? So there may be minute mistakes or maybe major mistakes. So because of which the raw material used to get wasted. But when you have implemented the technology into the existing business, what has happened? The wastage of that raw material has reduced, right? So when you have reduced that wastage of raw material, that raw material you can utilize it for making the another new shoe, right? So that making the another new shoe gives you the more benefit instead of wasting that, right? So this is just a brief note on technological process. So let's discuss what they have given for us. Suppose a firm uses two factors of production, which is capital and labor. So we have considered these two factors of production since very long, right? When we have started our classes. So to produce a certain good, subsequent and organizational innovation, if the firm involves the innovation into it, what happens? There will be the wastage of the raw material will be less. So the same level of capital and labor now produce more units of output. So if you consider the example which I have given before, right? The shoe manufacturing business or the shoe manufacturing industry, if it is involving labor oriented, then the wastage or the number of outputs will be less. If you involve technology in that, then the number of output will be more as compared to the labor oriented manufacturing business. So that's what we are talking about, the innovation or the technological process. So if a firm involves this innovation or the technology process into its manufacturing, then what happens? You can see there will be more number of output. Okay? So put differently, so the same statement we are talking into different way. So to produce a given level of output, the organizational innovation allows the firm to use fewer units of input. So what they are saying is, so when you have implemented the technology or when you have adopted innovation into your process, what happens? There will be a very less number of inputs which you are utilizing to get the output. Okay, so innovation technology helps us to reduce the maybe the time or maybe the wastage of the raw material, or also maybe the labor cost. So innovation or the technology is also a factor which is making an effect in the supply curve. So what happens to the supply curve if this factor affects to the supply curve? So it is expected that this will lower the firm's marginal cost at any level of output. Obviously, right? What it shows, when a company wants to make its profit maximize, then what we will be talking? We will be talking about the average variable cost should be less, whereas the market price should be greater than the average cost, right? So if you involve this technology, then what will be happening in the supply curve? You can see there will be a shift in the supply curve. So if you see the before supply curve, okay, this would be the marginal cost curve. We had average variable cost curve, right? So this area is the no production area, wherein the company does not wish to produce any of its output if it is falling in this area. So from here, this is the supply curve, right? So if you involve the technology, the innovation into your process, then what happens? The supply curve shifts towards the right side, or it also come to the downward. So that's what they are talking about. It is expected that this lowers the marginal cost curve of any firm. So shift in the right side, nothing but it can go like this, right? So you can see there is a shift, and also you can see there is a downward. Okay, it's not coming in this side, right? If the shift, if we have seen the supply curve which has been shifted to the left side, then you can see there will be a rise in the supply curve. But we are not talking about the rise, but we are talking about the downward trend of the supply curve. So as a firm's supply curve is essentially a segment of the marginal cost curve, technology process. So you have involved technology here in this manufacturing unit. So that's the reason what has happened. You can see that the supply curve has been shifted towards the right side. Okay. So the technology process shifts the supply curve of the firm to the right. So you can see the supply curve has been shifted to the right. When this happens, only when there is an innovation which you have adopted in your manufacturing process. So let's understand next point, which is the input prices. Okay. So what is this input prices? Input price may be the cost incurred for buying the raw material, or maybe to manufacture a product you need a labor also, right? So if a labor is providing you a service, in return what you will be paying? Wages, right? So if the labor wages are higher, or if the labor wages have been increased dynamically from the previous situation which the company used to have, then you can see there will be a shift in the supply curve, right? So when there is an increase in the labor wage, then what the company is incurring, its expenses are going high, right? To manufacture 10 units, if you need 3 rupees as a labor wage, then you used to get cost as 30 rupees. But now it has been increased. Same number of units, but the labor cost has increased to 5. Now the cost has increased to 15, right? Yes? So if the expenses or the wage, what we are talking about, the labor wage, is expenses for a firm. So if you see there is an increase in the labor wage, then we also have increase in the cost, which is the expense to the firm. So let's say a change in the input prices also affects a firm's supply curve. We already know this, right? So the factors makes changes in the shift in the supply curve. So when we have change in the price, then how the supply curve looks like? If the price of an input, let's say the labor wage, okay, increases, the cost of the production also increases. We have seen here, right? The labor wage rate has increased from 3 to 5. The cost also, the cost of production to manufacture 10 units, when the labor charge was 3, we used to get cost of production as 30 rupees. But when it has been increased to 5, now the cost of production we are incurring is 50 rupees. So the consequent increase in the firm's average cost at any level of output usually accompanied by the increase in the firm's marginal cost at any level. See, you can see here the marginal cost. If the expenses are going high, then we will see that the supply curve will not be in this line. But what happens is there will be a shift. The shift becomes towards the left side. Why? Because the price or the cost was on the y-axis, right? So if the prices are increasing, then the cost curve, the supply curve will also shift towards this side, but not this side. If it shifts towards this side, then the prices are lower. If this is the situation, then we can see there will be shift here. But if this is the situation, so there will be shift in this supply curve. Understood? So when we have 5 as the labor wage rate, then we can see that the shift is towards the left side of the previous supply curve. So marginal cost curve at any level of output, that is nothing but the left side or the upward shift of the marginal cost curve. So this is nothing but the left side or the rising side or the upward direction. This means that the firm's supply curve shift to the left at any given market price. The firm now supplies fewer units of output. So when the company is incurring more expenditure or more cost of production, do the firm tend to sell more number of units to the market? No, right? Because they are not willing to make a huge cost of production by manufacturing many number of units. So what they do is they try to make very less number of outputs so that they can keep themselves into the production process. So if this is the situation, if the wage rate increases, maybe wage rate or maybe some other factor, internal factor or the external factor, what happens? Then we can see there will be a shift in the supply curve. So when there is an increase in the prices of a labor wage or cost of production increases, then we can see the supply curve shift towards the left side or the upward shift in the supply curve. So this is how we understand the determinants of the firm's supply curve. So I hope you have understood what these two meant by. So see you all in the next video, more on the market supply curve.